Welcome back to Inspired Content's weekly episodes. So we're on another week of reading, and this week we'll be looking at A Wizard of Earthsea. Well, take a read through of this and give my thoughts and ideas it inspired. See you on the other side. A Wizard of Earthsea. It's a story of one who will someday become more powerful than all who came before him. So it's got some of those classic story type to it, and it's got some interesting world building. The first part of the story, the pacing, is focused mostly on that world building, whereas the latter part of the story is more action-packed, but it's more about resolving the part that was set up earlier on. So there's a little less depth to the world, it feels to me. So overall, I'd rate it about a 6.7 out of a 7.6. But some of the ideas that it inspires, let's get into that. Starting with, okay, the first idea that comes along starts at the beginning of the story, where a village is defended from raiders by fog. And this makes me think it would be kind of interesting to just focus an entire story around a setting like that, but instead have it something along the lines of some trickster spirit or fae that resides in the woods around a village takes a liking to the cobblers and the good folk and the residents of that town, and frequently bespells the village in fog to defend it against monsters or raiders or whatever may come for them, and do it in that tricksterish way where things don't always seem to make sense, but the people who live within the city, the town, the village, are familiar enough with the trickster's ways and the forces that he calls that they've learned to take advantage of those aspects and to use them to defend their town against a bigger raider than they've ever faced before. In the book, the story moves to a point where he takes a boat to try to get to the magic school, and there's a sort of threat from weather of never reaching the shore, and so it's proposed that they take him as far as the next nearest port, and he'll have to find his own way there to the school. And it's the port that they are saying they'll drop him off at, he recalls having heard, is a port of unsavory characters. And I think that would have been an amazing story to tell, where a kid on his way or her way to a magic school by boat has to be dropped off at a port that is basically a world of adventure that could be the adventure this kid goes on rather than ending up at a school to learn magic. And they can find valuable lessons, learn more about themselves, grow as characters, and become valuable for who they are just as easily in that setting as they could at going to a school. The idea of people going to a location where they expect to find a place where they will learn and study to become great magicians or wizards or whatever you want to call them. And they find the supposed town in which this source of knowledge resides, but they can't find the actual school or the actual library or whatever you want to make it. And so they have to ask people, and the people within the town know what they're talking about, but will only give cryptic responses. Something that hints at something that needs to be puzzled out, and would give them clues as to where to look. But they have to puzzle their way through, and some people give up and end up leaving, figuring they'll never figure it out. The people who stay and struggle to try to figure it out have to sort of earn their keep and earn the clues, and so they apprentice or work or earn a bed and meals by laboring for the people in the town, and part of that exchange is learning new bits here and there about the truth of the school. And only as you go along the way do you ever find out that the real truth is the town is the school, and the labors you perform are part of the lessons that only later, in retrospect, with the keys given to you at the end to understand it all, do you realize are the lessons in the use of magic or the ability that you're seeking. I'd like to see the story of a kid who isn't a natural witch or wizard. They struggle behind their classmates, they don't do as well, they barely make it out, or maybe don't even finish to graduate because they're subpar as a student, but still the lessons they learn and the abilities they do gain through their struggle allow them to be the hero of at least their own story as they go through their life. Maybe they don't save the whole world from the archdemon of whatever, whatnot, but perhaps in their own little story of their adventures in life, their struggle does show them eventually to be a hero. Similar to the last one, I'd like to see the story of a character who, instead of quickly mastering skills or studying hard or whatnot, struggles the entire story just to learn the first basic spell. And they never really ever get it quite right. It always goes just slightly wrong. And every time it goes slightly wrong, it goes slightly wrong in just the way that always prevents things from going the worst possible direction. But it never really helps either. In the end, maybe you can have them finally get it right, or maybe not. Maybe they don't get it right. They keep bumbling through life trying to get that one spell right. And it always just goes off wrong, but just in enough of a way that they break even. And it's not the spell that they use to win the day, it's the rest of it. It's the outthinking, the sticking with it, the determination. It's those things that win the day. And this one's maybe a little spoilerish, but what if through the course of the story, this anxiety, this fear of this specter that he's summoned, and has come out, what if the story was misleading you along this whole time, making you think that that was what was happening, and only at the end of it do we realize that when it was summoned, much as in the stories that were told of the only other time something like this supposedly happened was the spirit came along and hollowed out the old ancient king and used his skin to do evil in the world. What if the story we followed all the way through was in fact that spirit that he summoned hollowed him out, and we've been following that spirit using his skin to do evil in the world, but we don't realize while we're reading it that it's evil that he's doing. It looks like he's helping people and doing good things, but only later, as we see at the end, the revelation that it is in fact the spirit in his skin that did these things, that instead of helping, he's been setting up courses that later come along and, when stitched together, sew a tapestry of undermining and disruption and chaos and destruction. But it's the sort of thing where you sow destruction by giving people exactly what they think they want, or you do bad by doing what seems good. And I think that would be an amazing thing to do in a story, if you could pull it off, where you think you're following one person, but what you're really following is the monster they created wearing their skin. And the thing that they're fleeing from is the attempt to put it right, the spells or the spirit of the person that was hollowed out, trying to bring an end to it before it comes to fruition. And so at that end point, if the character you've been following thinking he's the good guy the whole way turns out to be that monster, if he wins, you only come to the end to realize that the monster won. Or if he fails, you're snatched from that moment of crushing defeat to realize that through just a breath we escaped that horror that could have happened, and we've been rooting for the wrong person the whole time. Alright, so those are the ideas that I got from this one. Hopefully some of them inspire you in some way. Catch you next time.